The biggest predictors of elite performance, not just in sports, but also in business, are the genes around mental fortitude. That night, January 28, 2024, one of the few times God has spoken in my life and said, you're not going to do this for one, you're going to do this for many.
Welcome back, fam. I'm the host, Dr. Daniel, and I have a very, 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 very special guest on the show today. His name is Daniel Guzman, someone who is new in my life, but has also just been such a gem and such a special human being and special person. Daniel is the head of performance with 3x4 Genetics, also known as GENEFIT. Is that right? Or is that old?
GENEFIT's a division I operate, yeah. He
operates the GENEFIT division. And then also, this is how Daniel and I met. He owns Hype Wellness Studio, which is here in San Juan Capistrano. They specialize in hyperbaric oxygen, but they also run cold plunge, red light, infrared sauna, and they have some compression and some other recovery stuff. So to say that Daniel knows a little tiny bit about human performance, about recovery, would be an absolute understatement. This dude has worked with professional athletes galore. I know specifically in the soccer world, but also all the pro sports. And dude, I'm just honored and stoked for you to be here today. So thank you so much for the time. I could just run forever and just give you all the compliments. And
we don't need it.
We would just have an hour-long episode.
Set them high. Set them up high.
So, dude, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
I have no idea where our conversation will go, but it's going to be special. As our conversations tend to always be for me. So again, just thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to start for anybody who doesn't know you. Just kind of give us your wherever, like we can go the genetics route, but just kind of give us your background, like what got you right here to sitting with me today.
Okay. Let me give you the fun version.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My parents moved around a lot. My dad worked in the linen industry.
Yep.
Which the textile industry is one of the largest industries in the world. That's like washing bed sheets and hospital linens and restaurant, really nice towels, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we moved around a bit in California, but essentially my parents taught me a few things that just carried through my life everywhere we go. One thing was that you never, ever, ever give up. And there's a difference between failing and trying again, but you never give up on anything.
Yep. Come on.
So that's been huge in my life. And I always heard my mom telling me that, whether it's in sports or it's in life, whatever it is. And something, I bring this up because my mom used to make us run or bike 3 miles every day in the summer from when I was 5 years old until I went to high school.
Yep.
So we were always in the newspaper like, oh, the Guzman kids are running, or Daniel Guzman, kindergartner, rides his bike 3 miles to school. But I thought it was normal. But I remember as I started running, when I got older, there were still times I would get tired, and my mom called me Dippity, for whatever reason, Dippity Doodah. And she'd say, Dippity, pull the rope. Like, you never give up. There's always a rope in front of you. And as long as you're pulling, because she wanted me to do arm movement, as long as you're pulling, you're okay. And every time I run, that still comes to my head, especially when I get tired. So my mom's like my first coach, biggest advocate. And then my dad, along with her, just awesome human being, like one of the wisest men I know. I just am so grateful for the parents that I have. And we just had a really cool, tight-knit family. Anyways, grew up in an athletic family. Walk-on, played college soccer, which was great. Went to Westmont College, which is where my faith really became my own.
Cool.
Which I was just blessed at a really young age, where I was not just like looking for something that was more eternal. Like, what is actual hope in life? What is my purpose here? I've always been big about purpose. And my dad was big about purpose. So my mom was the encourager and like always in prayer. My dad was like, what is your purpose? It's not money. Your purpose is the impact that you leave on this earth and how you help other people.
Yep.
And I would always see him like helping random people, and all his friends would always talk about him helping others. And I thought, what a cool legacy that is. Like, I know my dad is a Hall of Fame soccer player in Santa Barbara. He's obviously one of the coolest guys in his friend group, but he's never like the one to like look at me. He's always just so calm and chill. And they're always talking about how he helped them in something. So I had these things that were instilled in me from a young age. And then from there, graduated college at Westmont, went into strength conditioning because I had a really good mentor, believer, Chris Eklund, that taught me that strength and conditioning wasn't just looks, which is also really hard to do, but it wasn't just like low body fat and big muscles. You can actually make someone faster, more mobile, get out of pain. And I thought that was cool. So that led me into pro sports, where I worked at the LA Galaxy, which if you don't know, that's a team in Major League Soccer, First Division Soccer, but some people don't watch soccer. So Los Angeles Galaxy, from there went to the USA men's national team, which is probably the highest I could get.
Yep.
That was a huge honor, 2017. And then 2018 to about 2022 was with Los Angeles Football Club, which is still a soccer team, LAFC, the black and gold. And then from there, left and jumped into genetics, which we can jump into later. But super happy to be at 3x4 Genetics and just learning like a whole new skill and kind of reinventing myself.
So cool. Yeah. So, all right, I got a question for you. We're just going to go like right off the deep end. So go back a few years ago. I had a coach at the time who was, and this is a business coach, I was doing 75 hard. So I don't know how familiar you are with 75 hard. It doesn't really matter. You can go look it up if you aren't familiar with it. But there's not just one phase of 75 hard. There's technically 4. But the first one, that. So the first one is called 75 hard, and then there's a phase 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
So 75 hard, you do 75 days, you do the 5 things, right? And then there's a phase 1, which is 75 hard all over again. And every day you're doing like 3 critical tasks. There's just a couple other things that are added. And then you have to take, I think it's a month off. And then the idea is that you finish 75 hard plus phase 1, 2, 3 all in a year. That's the thing. So you can look this up. Andy Frisella made this up, right? So I just had to give people a little context and give you a little bit of context. So I got to phase 3 of 75 hard. So phase 2, part of it is like you take a 10-minute cold shower every day. And then phase 3 is you had to meet someone new, or I think 2 new people every day. It's either 1 or 2 new people.
Oh, wow.
So regardless of the details of it, phase 3, I failed like every time. And so I would go back and I would try and start it over and do it again. And I was just burnt out, dude. So I'm still working out twice a day. I'm still doing all the other things of 75 hard. I've been doing this for almost a year. And my coach said to me, which leads me to my question for you. He was like, there's a difference between stopping and quitting. And he's like, basically his question to me was like, did you learn the lesson that you needed to learn from doing what you've done up to this point in 75 hard? And he's like, at what point do you quit with the beat down and just say like, I got the lesson and I can just let it go and move on? So when I share that with you, I'm curious because very much this mindset of like, we don't ever quit. We're going to do this thing every day. Like, how does that sit with you when I share that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I guess it's a tough one. Now that we haven't talked about it yet, I have 3 kids.
Yep.
I know you have Coco. So we've got kids and we're trying to teach them these kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think there's certain levels of maturity to this. Like at some point, if they commit to dance or soccer or track, then I don't want them quitting the season, even if they're like, I don't like that.
Yep.
I'm like, well, you committed. Your yes be yes, your no be no. So like, let's make sure we follow through. But the maturity I want them to get through at the right point is, are you submissive? Are you submitting to the process? And once you've matured in the process, then there is an exit point. It's like this season of life has ended.
Yeah.
But telling that to like a 7-year-old or even like a 17-year-old might be kind of tough.
For sure.
Because I want them to develop like real perseverance and endurance and character.
Yeah.
So I think as a kid, I probably wouldn't have got that. You know, like if I was running a race, my mom would always be like, hey, like you never give up on the race ever.
Yeah.
And that was just like, yeah, why would I ever give up on a race? But I'd have friends like that with like, oh, I'm tired. Like I'm going to fake a hamstring injury today. And I'd be like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, that's
right.
Just totally different mentality.
But it is this idea of like submitting to the process. I think about like James 1, like until you're like mature and complete. Yeah. Which is going to take a lifetime.
Yeah, yeah.
But like each little season, are we mature and complete to move on to that?
So good.
And then it's not so much quitting. It's like, hey, I'm done with that.
Stopping, choose something different. It's really cool. You just made me think of, and I shared this morning as well. So last night, my daughter all day yesterday, daughter had a dance competition. Yep. Her second one ever, but she had 3 different dances. So you got to imagine, like, she's been working on these for a while now. And coming up on competition, we had a 6-week stretch that she was like, at 6 weeks ago, she was still struggling with some of her moves, getting her dances mixed up. And so we were like, hey, if you want to do really well, this is what you should do. You should practice each of your dances twice a day, every day, no matter what. Yeah. And we even made her a deal. She was like, well, if I do it, like, could I get some reward? And we're like, well, we could do a yes day if you wanted. So on day, it was 6 days ago, she did not do her dances. No. Sorry. She had a like behavioral thing at school. And anyway, she lost her yes day. So the next 6 days following though, she still did her dances twice a day because she's like, I committed to it. So like, even if I don't,
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
even if you don't get the yes day, and she's like, yep, for sure. And so I think that's the principle though, right? It's like, that's the process.
Yeah.
And you could speak to this as well, I'm sure in so many ways, but like she literally won 2 separate trophies, came home with 3 medals. And she's just like over the moon, just glowing about it, and doesn't even care about any of the rewards that came from it. It was just like she committed to the process, and the outcome just spoke for itself because she had done the work.
Yeah. And now she's reaping the benefits.
Yep.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, 100%.
Gosh, that's tough. I mean, at that age too.
Yep.
To like not see the end in sight really, but you're like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this like really long-term investment for a maybe outcome.
Yep.
I may not win, may not get any rewards.
Yeah, I have this written in my book that I'm reading right now, and it said, I don't even know where it came from, but I just wrote it down, but it's like, the journey is long and it takes a lifetime to get there. And I don't know why I'm picturing that right in this moment, but so all right. Anyway, I was just curious where you sat on that principle alone, because it's stuck with me a lot. Where there are things where I'm like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be doing this, and I think that gets into a conversation of like God and obedience, but still following through in your word.
Can I add something on that?
Yeah, please, dude.
I don't even know this is controversial, but I feel like we're in a weird time of life where maybe when we grew up, which we're not that old, I don't think, but when we grew up, like life was different than it is now for kids.
Yep. 100%.
And sometimes I think parents right now are too soft or lenient with their kids.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say like it's not like the gentle parenting thing's a bad thing. Like I think there's moments throughout the entire day where you're firm and you're gentle and you're trying to find these standards with these little kids that aren't fully developed. But I feel like some of that's been lost. Like where my mom sees me parents my kids, she's like, oh yeah, that's how you were raised. Mm-hmm. But then like some of my friends would be like, oh, that's a little harsh. Yeah. Like yesterday it was raining, but Ivy and I have a commitment that she does 200 touches in the backyard with soccer every day. And she was like, but it's raining. And I said, so? Mm-hmm. You made a commitment, right? Yeah. And I told her, you can do it in the house if you want. It's more comfortable, but like we always do it outside. That's your zone. And it was like this perspective shift. Like, I can do that in the rain. I'm like, you can do whatever you want if you put the time in, but you're going to have a game in 4 weeks and you're going to know then whether you did the work or not.
Yeah. Oh, so
and
good,
she went
dude.
and did it. And she's like, I'm cold and I'm tired. And I was like, yeah, you're going to warm up and you're going to rest for the rest of the day. That was 12 minutes. Yeah. But it's almost like, I don't know if you see it. Well, I'm sure you do see it. Like, parenting's hard enough. It's not judging anyone. It's just that I feel like we've swung the pendulum too far where like there's this softer, like where's the standards for our kids? Mm-hmm. They want boundaries. They want standards and accountability. Yep. And that's okay. Like consequences are okay too. 100%. But when you ask that question, that's also the other half I thought is like by allowing them to quit too often or exit something, what is that like the lesson? What is that teaching them? Yep. And that one is the more that will stick with me. Like in 10 years, we'll know when our kids are teenagers. No doubt. Will they commit to a process or how would they deal with failure, all that kind of stuff? So, man, there's so many places we could go. So give me like, all right, you kind of have twofold. I know Daniel well, so I'm not going to fill in all the gaps because I don't want to give away any of your story. And I don't know what you're comfortable like sharing or not sharing, but I'm curious. So you have like full-time basically with 3x4 genetics, right? Yeah. And then, but you also own a business as well. So you're like entrepreneur in addition to, so bridge like that gap. And so there's all these skills, right, that we can teach our kids that I think you and I do a good job at. But like take those same principles that we're just talking about and like speak to it from a business ownership perspective. Like where does your head go when I just frame that question up? Okay. So let's back up. I left LAFC, in basically mid 2022. Yep. I left as head of performance, which meant a lot of mid and late stage rehab with players. Mm-hmm. And then all the healthy players, my job was to make sure they were fit and hitting certain training loads and speed targets and doing the recovery stuff and hitting the gym. So it was this all encompassing thing, which I loved. But then at some point, my heart was having a shift and it was a really tough battle for 6 months. Looking back, I know now God was pulling me away from that and I was denying it. Be like, whoa, hold up, God, let me tell you something. You brought me into this. I know this is of you. Maybe this is something different. And because God is patient to some extent, I had 6 months to learn through that. And then once I submitted and was like, okay, this part, it's not quitting. This part of the journey's done. Yeah. Like you've done what you had to do. We're going to move you on. So I left that thinking I'm not going to work for anyone ever again. I'm a natural entrepreneur. I already had a side training business online, all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then I just through friend of a friend met this VC that owned a biotech company, 3x4 Genetics. We became friends. At the end of the year, he said, hey, I think you do really well working for the company. My biggest things were always growth. Like, am I going to get better spiritually? Am I going to get better professionally, financially? Is there growth there?
Yep.
And this environment had all of that. And I love doing things that almost seem impossible. Like no one's doing genetic testing in sports. That was standard. It's like, okay, that's kind of cool. And I can give people better healthcare essentially.
Yeah.
So I was into that. In that journey, as I'm learning more about genes and genetics and how everything we eat, drink, breathe, say, everything we do affects your genetics. That's epigenetics. All this stuff is affected. We won't get into it too much, but my wife is just having serious mental health issues from a chronic pain, a double jaw surgery she had. And it was really intense. And I just kind of fell into hyperbaric oxygen. And I was going to buy one unit, split it with a buddy, and then have her use it and then rent it out in his business so that we could just essentially have it for free for my family. And essentially he was like, no, it's not the right fit. And I was super bummed. And that led to my dad, you know, the wise one, like challenging me and saying like, hey, what could this be if you did it as a bigger business? That night, January 28th, 2024, one of the few times God has spoken in my life and said, you're not going to do this for one, your wife, you're going to do this for many. That was all I got. But I was fired up and a little scared.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, here we go. Like, let's do this. I've got a full-time job. My wife is struggling, but now I feel like this is more of a vocational thing. Like, how are you going to help people in the community through potentially oxygen? I don't know. So that's kind of how I got into that. My wife and I, we work on this together. We're really respectful of, like, I'm on a mission with 3x4 Genetics and GENEFIT, which we'll get into, but genetic testing for athletes and raising the standard of sports genetics. And I'm really protective of that time, but that does mean in the evenings, early mornings, on the weekends, it's all hype. So that's all I'm thinking about. How can I better serve the people? In the past almost 2 years now, they talk about rewards. Like we've won rewards that reflect what the community thinks. We won best new business, best health and wellness business, best health business rated by Google in the area. All this stuff that I'm not like, oh, look at me. I'm like telling my team, look how great we've served the people around us. And I want that to keep growing. So it's kind of this weird intersection, but it allows me to tickle that itch of entrepreneurship, which is just innately in me that I love. And at 3x4, it's helped me think as an entrepreneur. Like, how can I serve this as if it was my business with the budgeting decisions, our expenses, all the moves. And so it's definitely exhausting. It's not something I can do forever. But right now I'm like, hey, this is what God's called me to do. So I'm just trying to intertwine it and be as disciplined as I can.
All right. So if you're listening and you do not know Daniel, which, like, dude, I just love you on so many levels. Okay. So this guy, he's always this calm. So I just have to preface this that I have never met you and you seem stressed out, including on the day that we met. And you had like every reason to be, I think, at that moment in time in life. So like, I don't want to say the secret, but what gets you to be so, like, you take on a ton, dude. And I know kind of on the side, like just 3 kids and like life and 2 different job and then a business. And I know what it's like just to have business and 1 kid, let alone all the other stuff that we have to do or get to do. So I don't want to ask what gets you through, but I'm curious to know how you can sit here with so much calm and presence and peace in the light of what could seem like chaos to a lot of other people. Do you get what I'm asking?
I do. Yeah.
So like, I don't want to say what's the secret, but bro, what's the secret?
I mean, I think about my mom just saying like, pull the rope.
Yep.
You know, like when you're running, like you don't give up, you pull the rope. But before I gave my life to God, he was already speaking to my life.
Oh, dude, it's 100%.
And so I always believed in God from a young age. I was actually raised Catholic until I was 12. So God had been in the household. I believed in God. I saw my mom praying all the time. I saw my parents live their life. And so I knew that God was always tugging on my heart. But, you know, there's that moment where you're like, okay, I fully commit.
Yep.
That didn't happen until I was 18. But I would say through that time, I always think about like I'm nowhere near the magnificence of David, but I love David's story because he was tending to the sheep as a nobody.
Yep.
And when I was a kid, my parents, there was fraud committed against them multiple times. And I remember my mom saying like, hey, financially it's going to be a little tight. I was the oldest sibling. And even at 10 years old, it was like, you can only get 2 pairs of shoes this year. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like a downer. It was like this like appropriate level of testing about being disciplined and training your mind and all these kind of things.
Yep.
And then my mom always feeding into me and encouraging, my dad telling me, be slow to speak, think through before you react. Because I was a very, very impatient kid. Like fishing was the worst thing ever for me. Everyone else could chill and I was like, Dad, I'm not getting there's no bite here. And I just like watching my dad, he's the most calm person I ever met. I've seen him angry before, but the one thing that I really appreciate, I talk about what my mom taught me. My dad taught me to be calm in the storm, that things are going to happen. And I know that there was stuff in his life. Like now that I look back, he was probably dealing with a ton with running his own business or like traveling around the US to help this big multi-billion-dollar company.
Yep.
He's got 4 kids at home. So I've always respected people that are calm in the storm. Flash forward to my pro sports days for 10 plus years. People lose their composure all the time. Mm-hmm. It's like absolute. I could tell you story after story, like U.S. men's national team. And they tell themselves, and I don't know if it's a fear thing or insecurity, but they're like, if I don't get what I want right now, everything is like the world's going to end.
Yeah.
And my job was to show them like, hey, take a breath. I'm here to help you. Like we can get through this. And I think after practicing that multiple times, or when players like, unfortunately, like I've seen like dislocated ankles and legs where like things are hanging and you can't think about like, oh my gosh, how scared am I right now? Mm-hmm. You have to like train that muscle in your mind to be like, okay, they're more afraid than I am right now. My only job is to show them absolute calmness and confidence that this is going to be okay.
Yeah. Even
though on the inside, I'm like, your ankle's hanging off your leg right now, So I think just like being exposed to that. And then that's probably why I did so well in pro sports is because I could find that composure. Sometimes it actually would backfire where people would get pissed off because they'd want to get a rise out of me.
Yeah.
And my response would be like, hey, I think you should walk away before this turns to something you don't want it to be.
Yeah.
Like, let's both take a breath. We're both frustrated, but I would say it like I'm saying it now. And we're like inches from each other's face. And somehow I'd be able to like bring people down. And my dad would tell me, what's more important, you making them look stupid and you feeling better? Or can you try and find a way to like bridge the gap even if you're pissed off?
Yeah.
Sometimes that means apologizing. Sometimes that means like not throwing a punch, which, a lot of stuff happens in pro sports.
Yep.
So I was tested all the time. And then the last thing I'll say is like a diligence to reading the Bible every single day. Because I'm literally like just this random guy. I have no idea how to manage all these things. And I go to God, I'm just like, okay, heavy heart. Like, let me just breathe this out. Just like show me what I'm supposed to know. And if I commit to reading this every single day, then maybe in 10 years, I'll know a little bit more. And in 20 years, know a little bit more.
Yep.
So I think that's also too, like, where do you learn this from? Like my parents and stuff, but like daily reading in the Bible, which is a living word, and feeding into my spirit. I'm like, okay, so to speak, all that kind of stuff. Or like Romans 12:2, like, don't conform to the world. It's just like, hey, don't conform to the world.
Yeah.
Let me transform your mind. Or you were talking about 2 Timothy.
Yep.
I always talk about living without fear. And that's such a great verse you said, 2 Timothy 1:7.
Chapter 1, verse 7, yeah.
Yeah, great verse, right? Like, we were not born with a spirit of fear.
Yep.
That's huge.
We're born with the spirit of love, power, and a sound mind.
Yeah.
And sound mind is self-control. If you look at like the commentary and how it's broken down, it really just means self-control. And
if you think to what I just said about people losing their composure, that verse right there sums it up. They lose their composure because it's unknown and it's fearful.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I don't know what's going on, and so I'm going to blame everybody else.
Yeah.
When I would be like, oh, you can blame me first. I don't care.
Right.
Like, take me on.
So I got a question. Break it down. If you had to say, like, if you stepped into the role of coach, and like, let's just say, like, this is a Profitable Chiro Network, right? So we're talking 2 chiros who own businesses. Give me, like, what would you tell people to do specifically to have more composure? Like, is there, I know you mentioned a couple things. You're like, breathe. I know it took training for you, but like, if you're going to walk somebody through, is like, here's how today you could just take this away and your life would be more peaceful. I know you're going to say read the Bible. is going to be a part of it. But like, give me the step-by-step of like, I don't know, 3-4 steps, but just something like really practical that people could take and be like, because this is what a lot of people do. They're going to go like, well, I could never do what he does. Like, he just had a different upbringing and that's not my upbringing. So like, I could never be like that, or I could never do it. But the reality is I know that you've had those moments and you've learned to train yourself in a very specific way and have self-control and have discipline and all the things. So like, what's the more practical, like tactical steps that you would tell somebody, like, if you did this, your life will be more peaceful?
Okay. First, I'll acknowledge that I still, like, I do have moments where I go out of it and I'm stressed.
Yeah,
and
dude.
Like, if you saw me on the field playing, I'm a calm soccer player, but I'm aggressive. I like to, get in tight. And then the last thing I'll say is, obviously I do genetic testing. My stress genes are through the roof. So when geneticists look at my genes, like, oh, you must be stressed all the time. But what's cool is that genetics is not your destiny. It's just a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Your environment, which is everything we're about to talk about,
Yep.
is what can help train that. So one thing that seems so simple that my parents would always tell me, whether it was in the field or in business, whatever it is like every time when you're really frustrated before you're about to speak, like pause for 5 seconds, an awkward pause.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say a word. And then take a deep breath. And then, well, let's stop. That's step one. If you just do that, I think a lot of situations, like, okay, if your chiropractic business is like, you're not getting enough clients, there's like a million things that can go on in any part of business.
Yep.
You're stressed about all of them. Take a breath first, right? And then what helps me is I actually write them down. So there's some science to show this, like getting it out of your mind and putting it on the paper can help to like bring the stress level down. So next thing I'll do is I'll write it down. What is everything in my mind that stressed me out right now? I make a list, okay? Once I see that list, I go through and say, okay, color, like red, yellow, green. Red is like, what is the most urgent? Make a little mark. And then like, what is kind of urgent? And then like, what's not urgent at all? It's just bugging me. It's still important.
Yep.
I'll do that. And then from there, I think, okay, what can I control today? And the first one that I can control is the only one I focus on. The first one in the red. And I tell myself, like, the green ones are still important. It might be like, don't forget you got to tell Lauren that Ivy has this practice, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that can be dealt with. Like the biggest one that's affecting me is whatever's the one that's the most urgent.
Yep.
So if it's that I've got a podcast and I want to make sure I prepare and I'm doing these things, what do I have to do to prepare? And then from there, if I can make a plan in the moment, great. If I just need to schedule it, I need to do like one thing. And I found that by taking a breath, writing it down, and just doing one action step, that calms me down. I can move to the next one. Because it might be, I've got this 3-month project, so I'm not going to do it right there. Mm-hmm. But I need to put it down. I need to email one teammate and say, can we get a schedule in the calendar session to figure this out? And then color coding it makes it super simple for me. And then from there, it just flows, to be honest. Yeah. It goes a lot easier now.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it's so like, one of the biggest breakthroughs I've had is, and I like some psychologists talked about this somewhere, that they're like, there's no problem that you can't solve if you just sat and thought about that one problem and only that one problem for like 30 minutes. And that's just really just solitude, like no distractions, no music, no nothing.
Don't get me started on solitude.
I've tried to implement that at a deep level, and every time just it's hard. It's not easy, but there's always breakthrough. And then at the end of it, there's always an action step. And it's just like, if you do that thing, because I was just telling this to Wes too. I'm like, everybody knows what to do. Most people just don't do it. You know?
Yeah.
So, all right, I want to shift gears because we got to get into this in like the little bit of time we have left. This is going to be like part 3, 4, or 5. But in part 1, we got to talk a little bit about genetics. And there's something that you just like in passing mentioned that I think is very interesting. So wherever rabbit hole you want to go down and go as deep as you want, like just talk over my head in the science because I want to hear it all. But you said in passing, you were like, the things that you think or the words that you say can influence your genetics. Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
So like we could talk about food. We could talk about pollution in the air. We could talk about EMFs and all this stuff, right? But I want to talk about that environment because we have control over it. And so from a genetic perspective, and dude, you're an expert, work with high-level athletes, like done all the stuff. Give us a rundown of like how that works and how that plays out.
Okay, so to start with, what is genetics? Genetics is just a language.
Yep.
In the English language, we have 26 letters. Mm-hmm. When we're talking about DNA, we have 4. Yep. A, T, C, G. Okay?
Yep.
Those letters make up words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But we have spelling changes. And those spelling changes what makes us different. So we are 99.9% the same or 0.1% different. I want to know the 0.1%.
Yep.
So imagine we've got the word, I say, Daniel, go put on that coat, C-O-A-T. But then I make a spelling change for me, the C to a G. And you're like, hey, can you go put on that goat? Well, you and I are going to be wearing two different things, and one's going to be more comfortable, the other one's not.
Yep.
But those spelling changes happen, and that's what makes us different. So we want to know those spelling changes. Those words make sentences, and those sentences make up paragraphs, and paragraphs make right? But it makes up a story. And once we know what your story is, we can be accurate and precise with healthcare decision, performance decisions, whatever it is. So in that comes the brain with the same thing. That's why we all have different genetic starting points, and then we have different predispositions to the environment we put ourselves in. Okay? So we have mood and behavior genes in the brain, which are really cool.
Yep.
And what I'm finding is that one of the biggest predictors of elite performance, not just in sports, but also in business, are the genes around mental fortitude, which would make sense, but there's science to now show that, which is really cool. So we have these different genes in the brain that show us a predisposition to that. So what does that mean? That means that you could have a response to stress that is low. If there's environmental stress in your life, you're like, yeah, I deal with that pretty easy. We kind of know who those people are if you think about it. And then there's a complete opposite side, which is like you have an extreme high response to stress. I guess you could say the higher response is worse, but I actually don't see it that way. I see it as understanding who you are and there's advantages. Because if I see someone that's a high responder to stress, I probably want them in the military being the ones that are like doing the data analytics, like forecasting all of the risk. Where the low stress guy, I probably don't want them there.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean they can't do it, but you think like, okay, where are their strengths and where am I going to put them there?
And when you say high response to stress, you're not talking about like a personality trait. You're literally talking about genetics that you can measure with the genetics test.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Cool.
Really
I just want people to be clear on like, we're not just talking about like, this is my personality. Okay, cool. Keep going.
Yeah. So we look at those genes. There's a lot of genes that affect mood and behavior, but what's really cool is that these genes that we found operate in pathways. So right now, what a lot of people hear is, oh, I've got this gene, right? MTHFR.
Yeah,
It's a really big one. Oh, do you have the gene or not?
Come on.
That's not the question that I care about. It's how does that gene interact with all the methylation genes?
Yep.
But how do those methylation genes interact with inflammation and detoxification, oxidative stress? It's this network where everything's working together.
Yeah.
And to look at one gene in isolation is really inappropriate. It can actually lead to poor healthcare, in my opinion. So
good.
I love looking at the mental fortitude genes, but I also want to see the other factors that affect stress, whether it's physical stress, physiological, mental stress, whatever the type of thing is. And then we can be more accurate and precise with the decisions we're making, or like if we're doing a scan here and seeing like, hey, like how are you responding to treatment? That might give the practitioner more insight, like, oh, I guess that makes sense. I'm not totally off, or they're not going slow. That's actually just their process. And I think it makes the story a lot easier to understand.
All right. So can they be changed? So like if I'm born with this certain genetic coding for, let's say, high stress, like walk somebody through or walk me through, like, can it be changed? Okay. Can it be influenced?
So there's two things we look at.
Screwed.
We look at insight, who you are, how do you respond to the world? That is insight. But then there's action. What can I actually do about it? So think about your genetics as a map. Your map doesn't change.
Sure.
Epigenetics is what we can change. So I kind of see genes as like dimmer switches. Sometimes they switch on, sometimes they switch off when we want them to or when we don't want them to. Imagine you roll your ankle, inflammation response. And so you've got a lot of pro-inflammatory genes switching on at that moment.
Yep.
Or you might have anti-inflammatory to stop it, right? So we have that process going on. Inflammation is not a bad thing acutely. We want to stop that kind of stuff and control it.
Yep.
But chronic inflammation can be an issue, right? So if those genes stay on for too long, that's where like, okay, we've got to find a way to support the body. And I feel like how you always say, like, you always say, oh, it's not me, right? But sometimes God gives us certain talents and skills to help tell the body, like, hey, remember this, you can do this, but little interventions.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see that side. So there's things we can do. So if insight and action, your blueprint, your map doesn't change, but we might find a better route to go and say, hey, when we take this route from Nexus to Hype, right? You can go 3 different ways. There's stop signs here, but we might want to measure what is the speed you're going, right? That's where blood comes in, different biomarkers. So we do biomarkers that test how we're going to get there and if it's effectively working. but your genes are not actually changing. They may just be like switching on and off them, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we have a map. That's a blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
But through the decisions that we make, they can be influenced, not changed, but like switch on or off at a different level. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to go, this may not be in the same conversation, but I'm curious to know. So I saw this study that I love to talk about. So the study took people 6 weeks of chiropractic care. And what they did is they looked at people's cervical curves. Okay. So there's a very specific chiropractic technique that they looked at to do this with. The technique doesn't necessarily matter because I think it's interesting and the principle holds true. And this is not a chiropractic conversation. This is a genetic conversation, just so you know. So what they found is that people under 6 weeks of care, as their cervical curve improved, they saw a lengthening of their telomeres. So I want the genetic expert, not myself, like just give a quick explanation of telomeres. And then like from your perspective, tell me why you think that would happen. So increased cervical curve, better cervical curve equaled longer telomeres. So if you could just kind of break that down, like pretend like I don't know what that means.
So real quick, if people don't know what a telomere is, a telomere is something in our DNA that we can measure, in essence, for lifespan, to keep it as simple as possible.
Or like aging, right?
Aging, right? So the shorter your telomere gets, that lifespan's probably getting a lot shorter. So we want to lengthen that. And there are very few things in the world that can actually lengthen the telomeres, right? But if, obviously, like eating the right things, doing that kind of stuff. So in that context, my thought would be that if you are putting the body in better alignment to respond to stress, which is everything. Stress isn't just bad. There's good stress and bad stress.
Can I just, hang on, I'm going to pause you for
Yeah, you go.
All right, like if you don't understand stress, you got to understand this. So you and I both got married, not together, but we obviously have wives. So on our, and like if you're married, did you guys know this? So like on your wedding day, you see Lauren walking down the aisle. I see Heather walking down the aisle. Our hearts are literally racing, like pumping out of our chest, cold hands, all of it. That's the same cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine pumping on your wedding day. That would be if someone cut you off in traffic or you got in a car accident. So same stress response. One is awesome and good and amazing, and the other one is not as good. So there's no good or bad. It's just stress is stress. So I just had to like set that stage because I think people forget and they're like, oh, I'm not stressed. And I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
You have stress.
Yeah, different parts of your brain that can give context to what's going on.
For sure.
But, right, if you need to drip more stress hormone, your body's just saying stress right now, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing I tell people like when they're exercising. Well, what's the best exercise? Well, I'm like, depends who you're asking. If you're just looking at your heart does not know if you are swimming, running, biking. Your heart just knows pump more blood or pump less blood. But your brain knows, which is why it's telling your heart. So, yeah, in isolation, I think that's a good way to think about that. Stress can be good. In fact, we should be stressing if you want to get better levels of performance. But you just don't want to overstress too many times.
100%. So anyway, sorry, I cut you off, but I just had, like, you got to understand stress just a tiny little bit to put it in context. So, okay, so telomeres, aging, shorter the telomeres, the more quickly you're going to age, and probably an indicator of lifespan as well.
So I like to think, like, one big thing, and this is where you can correct me because I'm always learning on the chiropractic side. One of the ultimate things that you're doing is alignment and improving cerebral blood flow, right? We want to make sure we're getting that up there. Okay. So what I would think as a strength conditioning coach is that if you're in poor alignment, which happens a lot when I'm in pain, and I don't have part of my routine isn't coming to get adjusted, which I don't even actually call it adjusted all the time. I don't know what the word for it is, but I'm just kind of like, that's just what I do. And the way that you've taught me, like, I don't think about it as like a snap, crackle, pop adjustment because you don't do that. It's more just like where's your nervous system at? Where's your spine at? And how can we just give it a little, I guess, stimuli to make sure that it is in the direction we want it to go, depending on how your brain's responding, right? Which is why I love it here. So if you're putting the body in a better environment, genetics plus environment equal performance, if you're giving a better environment, the body's going to be able to adapt to that stress better, which is going to decrease the rate of aging, which is what my theory is. And then you're able to handle all this other stuff of like pollution and nutrition, all that kind of stuff, which would make sense why it lengthens telomeres, which is really cool.
So it really just comes down to adaptation. So a more regulated nervous system is going to lead to better adaptation and the dealing with of stress. And how, like, I don't know if this makes sense. Like, tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm genuinely curious. How I explain this to people would be like this. It's like, as we're adjusting you, so all we're doing, we're putting input to the joints of the spine, but the only reason the spine matters is because that puts an input to the brain. And so There's a very specific pathway that movement of the joints of the spine travels up at a certain speed. It affects the frontal cortex. So I think of a bucket. So we can deal with so much. And then when we start to overflow, that's when we'll get symptoms. So, and this is just chronic stress, right? So really what we're doing when we're adjusting is we're doing twofold. Is one, in the short term, we're literally poking holes in the bottom of the bucket, trying to just get your body to process the stress that it's been under.
Yep.
And then step two in that process is actually making the bucket bigger so that you can put more in. And the things that used to be stressful no longer become stressful.
Yep. Totally.
So does that fit from a genetic perspective?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like this like back and forth we're doing because we're trying to figure this out, and you have majority of the answers. I have a little bit of them, but I'm thinking, I don't know if the term is like nervous system flexibility or agility. Like we're not creating these bodies that can just walk to and from our house and like you can't explore. Like we actually want like freedom of movement and freedom of stress where I can go to these high stress places and low stress places. Yep. And I think about, imagine you have this channel and essentially when I see you and you're working on my nervous system, on my spine, you're helping to increase the capacity of that channel. And if 100%. My capacity gets bigger, now I'm like, oh, now I can go run 50 miles in a week, or I can do these things versus like if I'm not exercising, not eating right, and my spine is always messed up. And the inflammation response, which is not a bad one all the time, is just going to survival mode. Like I'm going to keep your capacity small. Then yeah, the rate of aging is going to go way up. Yeah. That's kind of how, if that makes sense. Like
for sure.
Nervous system agility.
So, dude, we're absolutely 100% gonna have to do a part two. But before we go there, so I'm gonna transition just a little bit. I know it's like a quick transition. All right. So we talked about telomere length. We talked about genetics. We talked a little tiny bit about chiropractic, which I did not want that to be the point of the conversation, but I just thought it was interesting because there's a genetic component to it.
I love it. Yeah.
But you're also the expert in hyperbaric oxygen, bro. So like, give us, where does hyperbaric fit into it? I've been doing hyperbaric, by the way, for 6 months now. Yeah. Since we met, and it's just really become a part of my routine. And I've noticed some cool things that are probably like not what we talked about this before, not what the average person would maybe notice. Yeah. But cool changes nonetheless. So give us from the hype perspective, hyperbaric oxygen. How does that play into the genetic component and why you're so passionate about it?
Yeah. I'll also say, and you'll probably tell me like have more confidence about this. I never think of myself as an expert. I always just call myself an enthusiast. But I got to the point last week where I was doing school pickup and there's a new dad I hadn't met yet, one of Ivy's friends' dads. Yeah. And he said, "You're the HBOT guy. Yep. You're the hyperbaric guy." And you know, like nicknames are earned. You know, like you don't get to choose your nickname. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But I'm always like there's people smarter than me. I can learn more. Anyways, that's more of a just confidence thing. I like to stay humble. So HBOT. The short of it is, the more I learned about genetics and looking for something that could help Lauren get out of pain, and obviously like chiropractic, brain-based chiropractic is used for that. But I'm trying to think, okay, what else is important with that? And we've talked about this trifecta that we'll probably launch with the world one day. Yep. But oxygen is really important. And I read this random book about hyperbaric oxygen, and that a single 60-minute session switches on 8,101 genes. Wow. And if you do another session within 24 hours, that can double or triple the amount of genes switched on. And I was like, whoa. And if you don't understand, like that is a lot of genes positively having epigenetic change in a very short amount of time, just from having pressure and oxygen. Yeah. Not to mention like telomere length can increase and all this kind of stuff, which is like not a plug at all, but like, as we've talked about, according to the research, if you're doing chiropractic and hyperbaric, your telomere length will extend, which is awesome. So if you want to live longer, do chiropractic and HBOT. Yeah. So essentially I got into that and I started realizing that oxygen is a necessary survival input for anyone. Like we talked about, if you hold your breath, how long could you live? Maybe like a minute or two and then you're gone. Once oxygen stops the brain, that's it. Yep. And so sometimes when we have these things that are stuck in inflammation, or we've got oxidative stress going on, hyperbaric can be a really good input to help the body figure it out and reduce that inflammation or oxidative stress and get into that quote unquote healthy state, or help them to heal something that's going on.
100%. Yeah. So good. So good. Dude, what else? I don't even know where to go from here. So,
I mean, how much time do we have? Because that's what I really...
All right, so we
could go so many different ways.
There's one thing I want to go back, and you said it right at the beginning of when we started talking about HBOT. And I think it's one of the things that I I'm just going to like speak very candidly, and this would probably be a conversation for another time, maybe offline too, but I just want people to hear part of it is like, you're not just the HBOT guy. You are, and you're amazing at it, but like you're at a core level, just like a son of God who is a king in God's kingdom, doing what he called you to do and being very obedient in that. And sometimes it frustrates me a lot, especially here in Orange County, because the culture is like I've literally met people where they're like, oh, you're Nexus. And I'm like, no, like my business isn't my identity, right? Like God gave me way more than that. Like Nexus is cool, but if it went away tomorrow. So, dude, just speak on that just for a second, just like a little bit of identity, and then we'll wrap it up, and then we'll talk about, we'll get you scheduled.
You're going to have to cut me off. If tomorrow there was no hype, there was no me working for 3x4, like all that was taken away. Yep. It would probably be a sad day, but I know exactly where my identity stands. And that's why I always encourage men and women, but just specifically men are really important in my heart. Yep. Is understanding what is your purpose, and that comes from knowing your identity. Yeah. And so when you ask me in the beginning of this talk, how do I stay so calm? It's because I've known my identity for a long time. And when I was a kid, I'd get really frustrated, or I was hyper competitive, and I was very much like, look at me. You know, like I was best athlete in high school, and I won all these events, and I was always the super achiever in sports, which is still great. I wanted that, but I was very much like, I'm going to show you how much greater I am than you. Yep. And that's when I just love God's story, because he was basically like, you know how valuable you could be to me? Because all I really wanted to be was a team player. Mm-hmm. I was like, use me to do amazing things. Now, when you ask that to God, you find out the road to get there is going to be rocky, and he's going to test you over and over and over again. Yep. Back to James 1. If you've never read the Bible, read James 1. Yep. James 1 is great. But essentially, I think back when I was in high school, I read this book called Purpose Driven Life, which I think it's 40 days, and you're reading through like, what is a purpose driven life? Yeah. And I just love that book and recommend it to a lot of young men or of any age. But knowing my identity, that like even the word like human being, like people think about like, oh, you're Nexus. Well, that means you're not a human doing. You're a human being. Like you're a human first, made in the image of God, and he has a serious plan for your life. That if you follow that plan, you're going to have eternal hope forever. Doesn't mean it's going to be a great life on earth all the time. Yeah. But you're going to have hope in something greater, which is why if we look back at, the disciples, like the fact that they were willing to go through these gruesome deaths, the way that if you read about how they died, like people don't do that for something that they don't believe in, and that they haven't witnessed. Yeah. And then when you read, we won't get onto it here because it's pretty gruesome, but the way that their lives ended was so intense, but it's because their identity was so strong that there is life after here. And so all the other stuff, I don't want to say I don't care about. I do care about hype and hyperbaric and that kind of stuff.
That's not
but all I really care about is like kingdom conversations. Yep. Like what is going to help you be a better child of God, son of God, daughter of God, husband of God, all that kind of stuff. And I fail at it all the time, where I'm like, oh God, thank you for your grace. Yep. Because I am imperfect, right? So that's a conversation that I want to have all the time. And even I think I told you I was in Boulder 2 weeks ago, and there was a guy that was like, oh, I wish I was as religious as you. And the first thing, my response was not like, oh, thank you. My heart literally sank, because that means that I hadn't portrayed it the right way. Mm-hmm. I said, can I pray for you? And he was literally like the look in his eyes, like no one's ever asked me that. Yeah. And that was better than speaking in front of a bunch of people or whatever was there. I didn't care anymore. Like praying for this young man was the greatest honor I could have had on that weekend. And so I look for those moments all the time. Like who is just looking for hope out there when you and I know the loneliness of entrepreneurship as it is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you don't have to be lonely. Like there is a omnipotent being that cares about us deeply and has a story for us. Yeah. When we're just like, hey, invite me in. Yeah. I could go forever. Well, and dude, I think like that's a good mic drop, like end the conversation moment. And it really just comes back to like the legacy that you're going to leave, that we're going to leave as a result, is like, it's far greater than just like what this business did. It's like, how are our kids going to carry the torch and bring the kingdom to earth, and how we raise them. And there's so much more to like legacy than just like a bank account and inheritance and all this stuff. So yeah. I think you like portrayed that perfectly, and just like how we leave this place. And I just would say, like, plug for future episodes. If you think that your identity is as a doctor,
if you are a chiro and you broke both your wrists tomorrow, then you're very, very, very much in trouble because that identity will be shattered instantly. So there's deeper, and I just love that you have that heart. Any last words? Tell us how people can find you, can find Hype, can find all the stuff. If they want to know more about 3x4 genetics, like where can we find you, get a hold of you, chat with you, etc.?
Okay, so for the most part, everything Instagram, I always check it all.
Yep.
I'm not the admin of the 3x4 Instagram, but
Yeah.
at 3x4 genetics, it's just so much information, incredible education in the genetics world and health world. Or you can go to 3x4genetics.com.
Yeah.
For me, at Daniel P. Guzman, Guzman.
Yep.
I answer every single DM, and not that I get a ton, but when I do, I'm like, okay, how can I help this person?
Yeah.
Like, what value can I bring you? And then Hype at Hype Wellness Studio. We're located in San Juan Capistrano. And I just want people to know that Hyperbaric is out there. It could be the right option, especially the young high school kids that play contact sports, because they get so abused, and because their bodies are so resilient, their capacity is big. Most people are like, oh, you'll come back. You'll be fine. But I want them to know, like, there's actual healthcare plan we can do for you.
Yeah.
That's really simple, and it's not going to take up a lot of time. So any way that I can provide value and help, or if people are just like, hey, just, like, I've never read the Bible before. Those are my favorite conversations.
So good, dude.
I'm like, let's just jump on a call right now.
So good.
Let's talk.
I love it. Well, I am honored that you were here. We're for sure doing another episode. There's no question about it. If you do not, go follow him. He's amazing. Dude, it's just been such a joy and a pleasure, and we could have talked for like another 2 hours, I'm sure. So thank you for being here, bro. I'm very,
thanks
very,
for having
very,
me.
very, very, very grateful. You have no idea.
And thank you, Wes. Appreciate it.
Wes, you're the man. All right, fam. Love you guys. We'll come at you again next week. Peace.